Hi, and welcome to the National New Teacher Support Podcast brought to you by New Teacher University. The National New Teacher Support Podcast is a podcast for teachers by teachers, and I'm your principal, Dr. Terry Ross. I'm so excited, new teachers, to have you here with us today. We have a great topic with us and a great guest. So I want you all to really plug in, and especially those of you that are math teachers, but even if you're not a math teacher, our guest today will share strategies with you that you can use in any classroom. I'm so excited to have Mr. Donnell Hawkins with us today. Mr. Hawkins is the owner of Donnell P's Math Tutoring LLC, and he has been teaching for 3 years. And that's why I'm so excited to have him here with us today, because he's still a new and emerging teacher, but he's doing a great job. And he's also tutoring students across the city of Tulsa, where he lives. So we're excited to have him with us today on the National New Teacher Support Podcast. And teachers, we are well into the spring of the year. You're a new teacher. We're glad that you have hung in here this long. We want you to end the year strong. So we're going to continue to push these great strategies out to you. So, Mr. Hawkins, tell us who you are. Why did you start Donnell P's Math Tutoring, and why did you choose to get into education?
Appreciate it. Thank you, Dr. Ross. Thank you for this opportunity. Now, I got into this teaching space. I'm a former student athlete here at the University of Tulsa. Before teaching, I was in the health field. It didn't work out in the health field where like I really wanted to. And after being in healthcare, I was doing tutoring. And after I knew I wanted to do. I know I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I knew I wanted to make my own money. So then I ended up having the skill to teach math. I knew how important, especially here in Oklahoma, how important math is, and kids need it. So I started in 2020 during the pandemic with one of my coworkers, like cousins, and then after that, just kind of just build from there. People started to hear my name. I tutored throughout Zoom. I tutored here in Tulsa. I tutored nationally, like Philadelphia, Jersey, Florida, with different scholars. And then one of my good friends, he was at this school, and they were trying to recruit teachers, especially when teachers was actually leaving. And he was like, "Hey, I seen your math and you do well with it. Have you ever thought about being a teacher?" And I said, "Nah, I haven't really thought about that, but I can try it." So then once I end up getting what's it called? I ended up getting I did my application. I ended up getting an interview, did practice teaching. My wife is actually a 10-year plus teacher, so she coached me throughout the process.
Yes.
And then after that, I ended up getting a job, and I've been at my job since. This is my third year, and I'm loving it, loving every bit of it.
Well, thank you. And I'm so glad that you're loving it. And I'm excited even more now that you came into the classroom at the time that I was getting ready to start New Teacher University. And the reason I started New Teacher University, because the great resignation that was happening across the country during the pandemic, it landed in education. And thank you for answering the call that as people were leaving, you decided I have a skill set in math. So I'm going to come in and I can fill this gap, and I can stand
Mhm.
in the gap for children. So thank you so much for joining the teacher force and for what you're doing. And we're even more excited that you are still enjoying it, and you're finishing up your third year now. So thank you so much, Mr. Hawkins. And today, guys, we're going to talk about three powerful strategies to create culturally responsive math classrooms. And I'm excited that we have this, because math is that subject that many students are afraid of. And sometimes it's generational, because their parents may have even had a bad experience with math. So today we're going to demystify some of that. And Mr. Hawkins is going to share with us some culturally responsive strategies that you can use in your classroom to engage your students and to make sure that your students are matriculating through math with confidence. So, Mr. Hawkins, tell us, what is the first strategy that you'd like to share with new teachers that can help them create these culturally responsive classrooms?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So the first thing to kind of unpack, right, is to get to know your students when it comes to their learning styles. Okay. All students have different learning styles. Us as adults have different learning styles. And we have to know that in order to be able to reach our students. With math, there's multiple ways in order to solve a problem. And so can we solve the problem with kinesthetics? Can we solve the problem just by writing on a board, being visual? Can the student just kind of just read the understand like reading the problem and understand like building a story off of it? Like we have to find different ways of how our students learn in order to reach to our students. And so that's what in math, that's why sometimes math is scary for some students, is because maybe they just cannot visually see like, I just don't get it. And maybe you just have to tell a story of what's going on in order for them to understand. So in order to understand that student and for them to be successful, we got to know that learning style.
Yes, and you are building a bridge to the students. What are some of the ways that you get to know your students' learning styles? Because I know you can't do it in just one like fatal swoop. It's probably about the first 6 weeks of school that you spend really getting to know your students. How do you observe them, or what tools do you use to get to know their learning style?
Yeah, so with me, I use Google. I use Google a lot with my students. I create like a Google form and have like different little questions for them to answer. Like at the first week of school, I do little games and kind of like thinking games, kind of see like how the way they think and kind of making them kind of like letting me learn how they answer some of those questions and how they think about some of those questions. Even I even let them as a question, and I let them answer the question how they want to answer. And when you let them when you let them answer how they want to answer, you'll more than likely you'll get to understand how this student kind of thinks and like how they try to solve problems. And then throughout the class, throughout the week, throughout the 6 week period, if you kind of just understand their see how they interact with each other throughout brain breaks and during lunch or recess, the students will tell you they're not going to vocally tell you how they learn, but just by watching them, they'll tell you how they how they learn and how they take in information. It's just you as a teacher have to kind of just understand those details and actually put effort into knowing your students.
Well, thank you. That was a lot that you just shared, because one of the things that you shared is that you go slow in the beginning so that you can go fast. The fact
Mhm.
that you open the year up with games and things like that, and you're not just allowing them to play those games, you use the word observe several times. So you are watching your students and you're observing. Are you capturing this data any kind of way when you're looking at them, or are you just kind of saying, oh, this is how Terry learns?
Now, I go back to Google Sheets,
Mm-hmm.
Google Sheets, Google Doc, Google Forms. Like I use Google with my tutor and also with my business to capture some of this data to write notes to and that helps me kind of put my groups together. So I have like different groups in the class, like 5 groups of 3, and that tells me, okay, I can put this student with this student with this student, just because of just how they learn, how they interact, and how they can work together. So Google Sheets is what I use in order to capture all my data. So I will be able to have the classroom have a appropriate flow.
That is awesome. That's a lot of organization and planning too, and that's very high level. The fact that you're capturing the students, their movements, you're capturing how they think on that data sheet. You're not just capturing uh, their academic stuff. You're capturing how they interact with each other. Sounds like you're capturing who who do they mesh with the best. So that's really
Hmm.
awesome that you're sharing this with the students. And maybe at some point we can talk about how you use Google to manage your classroom, because that's a whole podcast right there when you're talking about
I
Google
know.
Sheets, Google Forms, and Google Docs. So we'll come back to that. So thank you so much for sharing that. And it seems like you're very intentional around getting to know who your students are so that you can move through the year with ease and flow, as you stated. So thank you for that. And thank you for what you're doing for our students. What is the second strategy that you would share with new teachers to help them to build that culturally responsive classroom for mathematics?
Keep math engaging. Keep math engaging. That's something that I had to learn on the way, because I can go on a board and knock a problem out, understand and see the patterns and everything. But a lot of students don't think like me, right? Like a lot of students need math to be engaged. And there's some students who may think math is boring. So how can we find ways to get math to be to have math be engaging and fun, right? So that's where that creativity come into play. Looking at different, I go off of other teachers, some of their information, some of their games that they use. I go off of some games that excuse me, sorry about that. I go off some games of social media, like what are some of the TikTok, the appropriate TikTok games that I
Yes.
can infuse with some of my lessons that I can put math in to make my students think. Like you got to be creative when it comes to math. Again, math is just not a one linear solution. Math have many solutions. So, and also math is creative. Why? Because there's patterns in math. So when there's patterns in math, there's different ways on how to fix a problem. And with our students on the creative piece and how to get math to be engaging, students think school is boring, right? And school is only
Yes.
boring if it doesn't connect with them. So I find ways in order to get math to be creative so it can connect to my students to where they're also learning at the same time. And it sticks into their head too when it's fun and engaging. So that's what I do.
Can you give me an example of just one fun and engaging strategy that new teachers can listen to you now and walk away and do?
Yes, sir. So one thing that I do, I like competition. I'm a former student athlete, and
Yes.
I have an all boys. I'm in an all boys school. So all my students in my class is 100% boys, and they like to move around and they like to be competitive. So what will I do? Hey, I'm gonna get my dice game. I got like a dice app, not a dice game, but a dice app. Okay, and I use that for points. So I have my dice, use this for points. I put questions on the board. We're probably talking about, let's talk about ratios. And I'll have several different ratio problems up and we'll do competitions. So I'll turn around and be like, okay, everybody get your boards. Everybody got a whiteboard, boards down, pencils down. Everybody got to be silent, voice level 0. And then as a class look at me and I'm looking at them, just, just playing, getting not anxiety,
Yes.
but anticipation up,
The
right?
excitement. Yes.
The excitement. And they see that math problem. I usually have like a first math problem up there, but I'm not going to solve it. I just want them to get ready. So then so I put my finger on a button to click to a new problem. And when everybody got their pencils down, on my mark, get set, go. And then the problem before everybody get their boards and start writing and get that board to try to get it up fast. Whoever got the right answer, I go ahead and go to my dice app. The dice rolls, it's kind of like a real dice, like
Uh-huh.
rolling dice, but
Yeah.
push the dice 6 points. So they don't even know how many points they're getting.
Yes.
They don't even know like they got to try to figure out how to get the problem right. And then second, with that, they're using the skills. Hopefully, I'm not getting enough because sometimes I can ramble. So I'm trying to get to the point. So I
No, you
apologize if
good.
I am rambling. But they're using the skills that we use from the previous lesson in order to solve this problem. So for them to keep using these skills, I put it in games and competition. And so going back into the story, they'll write the board, get the problem up. I'll say, oh, you didn't, you you missed up on one mistake. I'm going to the next person. You didn't say what X was. I'm going to the next person. And whoever gets, you got it right. Boom, 6 points. Boom. So they're like, oh, that's not fair. I had the problem first. So then when I hear like it's not fair, I had the problem first. He didn't do it like how I did it. Like that tells me that they are engaged. They are like saying like they care. They
Hmm.
care. They want to do well. And they're using the skills that you used previously. So hopefully that wasn't too long-winded and hopefully I was clear. If I wasn't clear, hey, I can retell
No,
the
that
story
was
a little
very
slower.
clear. That was very clear. You're creating competition, and they could roll
Yeah.
the die. They can use a number of different things that they can, do it.
Yeah.
But that was a great example, and I like the fact that they don't know how many points they're going to get because they
Mhm.
could get 3 points or they could get
Yep.
2 points, but sometimes they get six, and sometimes they may get 12. So
Yep.
that makes it even more exciting and add mystery to it. So thank you for that, and thank you for sharing that you teach our boys because any classroom need the same type of engagement and competition because girls enjoy it too,
Hmm.
children enjoy it. So we need to
Hmm.
make sure that we're creating that level of healthy competition around academics in our classroom. So thank you so much for sharing that. And our final strategy, what is the third strategy that you use to engage your students in a culturally responsive classroom?
Culturally responsive lesson planning.
Okay, what does that look like?
So say we're talking about proportions again, right? And on the lesson plan to say, well, with proportions, you get it's like fractions, equivalent fractions, just all like the math stuff, right?
Yes.
So then I go into, I teach at a predominantly Black school. So majority of my class of my students are African American boys. And I live here in North Tulsa, where it's predominantly Black on this side of town. And so I go to where what they see. I go to what they see on a day-to-day basis. I go to how their parents speak, especially on different issues, right? So we have this lesson, and it's about, let's say, unit rates throughout proportions. It's unit rates. So then I get them to understand unit rates. I say, have y'all ever just drove past and your parents always looking at that gas, at that gas price, and they always say 379 for a gal. Oh, 219. Oh, that's a steal. We need to go get some gas. I said, that's unit rates. So for 299 for one gallon, that's unit rates. That's how and they be like, oh, because I gotta go to some of the kids. Oh, I got this $20 bill. Hey, put 20 on two. And I say, yeah, you had to put 20 on two. How much gas do you, how much gallons are you going to have with $3? Right? What's the most you're going to get out of that? Right? So it's like, using things that's around them, how much, your ingredients, right? Your ingredients of food, like, are you like, how much of this sauce you got to put on all six of these, sandwiches for your family? Or,
Yes.
you like what are some of the just different things that's in their households that I knew what I grew
Absolutely.
up with. So it's like I infuse that into the lesson plans in order for the students to connect with that. And second, it goes all the way back to how my students learn, right?
Right.
How do they learn? What do they see on a day-to-day basis, right? And kind of like, how do I reach to them? That cultural responsive lesson plan is one of those ways to reach to them because it resonates with them, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, it's and when they get it, it's beautiful. It is
Yes.
beautiful. So
Yes.
yeah, that's how I did that answer your question on how I infuse culturally responsive scenarios with lesson planning?
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. And for you to have boys and you talked about gas because usually boys want to be excited about pumping gas for the first time. That was an excellent one. You talked about recipes. I was waiting for you to talk about Rotel. With the recipe, what size
Yes,
block of
sir.
Velveeta
Yes, sir.
they use for the Rotel because that would be culturally responsive for me. But
I
thank you
like it. I
so
like
much.
it.
Is it anything else that you would like to share with new teachers about your journey right now? Because you've shared some very powerful strategies, but just to encourage them to hang in there. And what has kept you in the field of education for 3 years?
So what kept me in the what I would share, I guess let me go with that first part to kind of resonate with everything else. That second part resonate with everything else. What kept me in education for these 3 years, I've always been like a teacher, right? Not even in the classroom, just teaching when it came to sports. I used to teach a couple of my teammates in college, like how plays are going on. When I coached, when I'm doing my coaching, I don't just coach like, oh, you gotta do this. No, what is the science behind it? Why am I doing this? What angle I need to take? Like I'm very descriptive when it comes to like how to unfold everything. So with this teaching always been within me and stuff. And my before I even got into healthcare, my first I was gonna be a teacher and coach because all my friends were doing it.
Yes.
That's kind of why I kind of went because I didn't want to do what they were doing. But hey, I came back into the natural space that of where I'm at, and I just enjoy it and understand with math. I love seeing patterns, and I like trying to figure out how can I figure this question out? What in this question is helping me kind of, or what in this path is holding everything together? So with the teaching, going back into the classroom, I just want to with black teachers, with black teachers, our boys don't see enough black teachers. That's just what it
Absolutely.
is.
Absolutely.
So with me being there and me just always I don't listen to exactly everything that my kids listen to, but like them coming to my classroom, they'll probably hear a rap, like a rap song or some type of jazz or hip hop jazz coming into the classroom that resonate with them. I'm gonna talk their lingo. I don't know all my students' generation lingo, but it keeps them like, oh, he understands what I'm saying. He understands who I am. It keeps me close with them. And so and tells them like, hey, you can do what I'm doing or do anything greater and still have that culture. We don't all have to be entertainers and athletes and so much. So that's what keeps me in there because I want to be a positive influence for my students, especially when it comes to us black men being in that math space when it's not a lot of us. So it tells my students, hey, I had a black math teacher when I grew up, and I know I can reach to that level or even more because I seen him do it. So I know that was a mouthful, but that was why I enjoy it and I'm staying in the classroom. The second, can you repeat your first question to me? Because I know I
You
can get
answered it.
long-winded.
Just some encouragement for new teachers to help them hang in there. What would you say to new teachers to encourage them to hang in there with education?
I would say when things get hard, right? When things get hard, have somebody in your corner. Have a mentor in your corner, right? To keep because in education, especially on how things are going throughout the states, right? Like it's going to be tough and there's going to be something that's going to not resonate with you. Have somebody in your corner that can keep those positive vibes flowing within you. Don't let don't let don't let negative influence you disrupt your purpose. If teaching is your purpose, don't let those negative influences disrupt you. Be who you are. Don't let nobody tell you what you cannot do. Always look for room to grow. That's one of the biggest things that I have to do. And my wife get on to me about looking for things to grow. Every time I feel like I reached a point, she's like, "No, you got to keep going, baby." I'm like, thought it was there, but looking for things to grow. And what else helps? What else helps me? Those are like the top three things that I would give out to a brand new teacher that's coming into the class. And no, you're not, and you're not alone. And you're not alone. There are teachers that feel alone in their classroom space. Hey, I don't know what your situation is and if you feel alone at your school, but hey, join a group. I'm in this black male mathematician group that understands how I feel about different things, and they pull from me and I pull from them on how to work through different situations. Maybe growing an educator group that that resonates with you. So then you'll be able to help them and they can help you when you're feeling down. So those are some of the points I would make. Hopefully I wasn't all over the place, but those are some of the points I would make to a brand new teacher come to stay positive in the classroom.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Donnell Hawkins from Dunny P's Math Tutoring LLC. Those were some bars. Thank you so much. Thank you for what you shared with our audience today. And I was so excited to hear you talking about that. You go to TikTok and see strategies. You go to YouTube. You go to different places and see strategies. I just finished writing a book called Micro Learning for Educators, Intentional
Mm,
Strategies to Transform Professional Development in the Digital Age. And I wrote that book because
yeah,
teachers, and especially millennials, who's really about 38 to 40% of the teaching force right now and growing, millennials are digital natives. You all are looking for on demand learning that you can go and implement right away. You're not looking for the 4 hour PD.
mm,
You know, you want the 4 hour PD because that does build theory and foundation, but also what
right.
can I look at tonight that I can implement in the morning? And I don't have to look at a long 20 or 30-minute or 2 hour something. I can look at something that's a strategy that someone shared for 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. And I can look at
Mhm.
that several times and own it and go into the classroom and share it. And that was the purpose of this podcast, so that teachers and especially new teachers could come to a place, listen to award-winning educators, and learn strategies. So thank you so much, Mr. Hawkins, for sharing with our audience today on the National New Teacher Support Podcast, brought to you by New Teacher University. We're excited to have you with us. And new teachers, I hope that you enjoyed this and that you learned some strategies to help you create the culturally responsive math classroom that you desire for your students. Again, thank you for joining us on the National New Teacher Support Podcast, brought to you by New Teacher University. This is the podcast for teachers, by teachers, and I'm your principal and host, Dr. Terry Ross, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Remember, to every day, your students are looking forward for you to come to school. You never know which day the students are looking for you, and you're the reason that they showed up. So thank you.